I've seen it too often where you have ego lifting trainers where they just want you to lift as heavy as you can because they have to try and make you think you're getting stronger, even though you're not thinking of your core. You're not thinking of your posture. You're not thinking full range movement. They just need you to perceive strength. Good day, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of For Health and Happiness, coming to you live from Irie Studio. I am your host, IFBB Pro Hafid James, and on today's segment, we're going to be talking about injuries. Now, injuries is something I'm always worried about. As a professional bodybuilder, I know injuries can happen. Even if you do everything perfectly, injuries can happen. But what I want to talk about today is what can we do to make sure we're preventing them? And then even at the end of the video, I'm going to go through some things that you can do to make sure you're preventing them or hopefully help you with maybe some of the injuries you have. But definitely, if you have an injury, if you're feeling a pain, please go to a specialist. See a physio. Hopefully you're working with a corrective exercise specialist. Go to your doctor. A lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today is talking about mindsets when you're working out and stuff to help prevent injuries. But I would definitely want you to work with your team, with your support team to make sure you're in your best place. Before we get into it, I just want to again say thank you for everyone that joins. Thank you for everyone that subscribes, likes, and follows. It was only a few weeks ago, we were talking about how I had my first video to go 2K views. Since then, we've had 3 videos go over 2K. One hit 3K, one by the time this airs is going to be over 2K, and the other one hit 2K as well. And again, I'm hoping that means the content's good, it's useful, and then you guys are commenting, you're telling me it's useful. So always let me know, if I'm giving you enough information or if I'm doing it too much. I just want to make sure at the end of the day, we are giving you useful, important information. So when it comes to this episode, this is going to be another women's wellness episode where we get questions from the ladies. And this segment, we want to know reasons why people failed. And one of the answers we got was because of injuries. Now, I think injuries can stop you depending on what your goal is. If your goal is just general well-being, maybe even just general weight loss, you can be injured, but it might not be able to stop you because you can still work on your energy levels. You can still work on weight loss and stuff like that without being too active. What I always like to tell my clients is that we want to focus on doing those things outside of the gym that's amplifying your fat burning hormones, minimizing your fat storing hormones. And then your training and cardio, that's what's really going to amplify. That's what's really going to be the accelerant to your results. But if your goal is fitness, is to run a mile, is to squat, or you just like being in the gym, then yes, injuries is definitely something that can hold you back. And I want to do my best to prevent that. So what are some common causes of injuries? I think one of the main ones that people don't talk about enough is overtraining. We've talked about it before, but very simply, overtraining simply means you're doing more than your body can recover from. And I mean, to be honest, there's some people that don't go to the gym at all and they're still overtraining just for the amount of stresses in their normal life. But if one of the things I would see is I'll have people that's just starting out in the gym and they want to, pay to train with me for like 4 or 5 days. If you're in the gym, you are damaging the body. That means you need that time to recover. If you're going too often or you're just in there too long, that's an easy way to cause injuries because you're not just muscle. You're also joints and ligaments. And the same way how your muscles get stronger, your joints and ligaments get stronger to the workload that you're doing as well. But if you're not giving your body that time to recover, then that can easily be, okay, you're stressing the body, but it's not recovered. Then you're stressing it again, but it's not recovered yet. And over time, that can hurt you. I remember I had one client start with me a few weeks ago, and he had tore his hamstring. So obviously we were just doing an assessment, seeing what he was doing before. And he was on this program where he was doing a push-pull legs, then push-pull legs. And it was like a heavy full leg day. He didn't have enough time to recover. So eventually his legs, his muscles just gave out. So just always be mindful. Don't think more is better. Don't think, well, I have to be in the gym, every other day, every day to get results. Don't think you have to be in the gym an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to get results. If the more effective you're being, the less you would actually have to do, which means you just have more time to recover. The other thing that can happen is there's a misunderstanding of the tag no pain, no gain. Yes, if you're in the gym, if you're challenging your muscles, you're going to go to a point where like the muscles is tired. And if you really want to get that development, you want to go as close to failure as possible. But that's when you're talking about the muscle, not the joint. I can even tell you this story once when I was in the gym and this lady was on the leg extensions and she was gripping her knee. And she was locking out on the top of the leg extensions. I don't know where her trainer was at the time, but he wasn't anywhere to be present. And I normally don't do this, especially if they have a trainer, but I saw that she was in pain. So I just went over. I was like, are you okay? It looks like you're hurting your knee. And she's like, yeah, my knee's hurt, but I'll just push through it. And I was like, no, this is to work your quads, not your joints. You shouldn't push past that pain. It's like, no, it's okay. I got to put in this work. I got to get this body. So just don't tell my trainer, but I'm just going to push through it. Those are the type of mindsets that can hurt somebody. Yes, if you're in the gym again, keep that tension in the muscle. If you start feeling in places you shouldn't, you should be telling your trainer. You should just know to stop itself. If you're training your quads, you should not be feeling your knees. If you're training your biceps, you should not be feeling your back. If you're training your chest, you should not be feeling your shoulders. And if you do, the best thing to do is stop and assess why that is, because over time that can easily turn into a very serious injury where now you're not able to go into the gym at all. One of the other things I would see that causes injuries, and this is something inside and outside of the gym, is just poor posture and you don't know how to engage your core. Now, when you're thinking of posture outside of the gym, you're thinking of your body being hunched over. That's one of the most common ones. And if you notice, it's very prevalent now where everyone kind of has this hunched over effect. But because you're hunched over, there's a few things you're doing to your body. You're actually putting some slight tension on your lower back. You're involving more of your shoulders. And when you just continually go and you're moving and you're picking stuff up, it's one of those things where you won't feel it right away. But over time, it catches up to you till you make that one sudden move and you're like, oh man, my back just gave out, or oh man, I hurt my shoulder. It wasn't a right away thing, but again, over time. So just now think if you don't know how to engage your core when you're picking stuff up outside of the gym. Think about if you don't know how to keep your posture. And the easiest thing when you're thinking of posture is just to think stand tall. But if you don't know how to keep that posture outside of the gym, what do you think happens when you have the same mindset inside of the gym, where now you're purposefully lifting heavy weight, maybe as heavy as you possibly can with hopefully good form? All you're going to do is amplify and make sure that pain is going to come even quicker. So I'm always a big believer, like my foundation of training for myself and all my clients is, what are you doing with your core? What are you doing with your posture? We do have a video up on the page that talks about how heavy should I lift. I'll make sure to tag it in this video. The weight I lift is always the least important factor. I want to make sure my core, my posture, my full range motion, constant tension, all of those are in place first. And then yes, lift as heavy as you can. But if you don't know how to brace and you're just assuming your core's engagement, you could be using your lower back. And, even with that, most of the times when I'll have a new client and I'll tell them to brace, what's the normal thing most people do? They suck in their diaphragm. That is not how you brace. That is not going to engage that core to make sure you're giving your back that stability. So these are the things you want to learn. And then you want to grow from that to, yes, be in the gym pain-free. If you do want a longer video just talking about posture and core, let me know in the comments below and we could do that for you. Another reason people get injuries, poor form. And just like we talked about the core and posture, these things are not acute, they're chronic, which simply means you might be doing something, you don't feel it right away, but is when you do it over time, eventually it will catch up to you. And that's when the injury occurs. In my opinion, we always want to think prevention, which is why you're listening to this video. Some of the common movements I will see with women that will cause them injuries is one being the squat. And this will come from just thinking of how do you move from point A to point B. So they'll just drop down, not thinking, well, is the muscle controlling it or is just gravity pulling me down? And then that initial jerk to push this weight back up, your legs hasn't been involved with this exercise. And then you can't just all of a sudden be like, hey, legs, wake up. What can happen over time is your back, your joints, your knees are going to get involved to help move this weight. And if you keep doing this, and then even if you go from point A to point B, then what's your mindset say? Well, let's put on more weight. And then you're just putting more stress on your joints. And that's a very easy way for you to end up hurting your back. Another way is not looking at yourself. I'm a big believer, whether you have a trainer or not, to record your form, so that way you can see what you're doing even with your knees, because it's something that's just called knee valgus, is when your knees cave in. The more your knees cave in, that's the more tension you're putting on your knees and not on the muscle. So the more it comes in, you're taking your legs out of the equation, and that's another easy way that you can hurt your knees. Now that has a lot to do with maybe the weight you're lifting, maybe your form, or maybe your abductors, the side of your butt. Maybe those muscles aren't strong enough, because those are your supporters. Those have a lot to do with stabilizing your knee joint. So you want those strong. You want to learn how to push those knees out, especially on the bottom of the squat, so you can keep the tension on the legs and not put it on your joints where you do not want this. The other thing is not thinking about, and this is more so talking about your barbell squat, not thinking about engaging those back muscles. Now, one of the things I noticed when I first started, luckily I haven't noticed it with my clients personally, but I'll have clients that would just want to come in and they'll just want to train legs. They wouldn't want to train anything else. If you're trying to do a barbell back squat, yes, the primary muscle is your quads, but you need to have strong lats. You need to have strong traps. You need to have a strong core to make sure you can stabilize this weight as you're pushing up. If you're not working your full body, making sure everything's strong, everything are good stabilizers, you're not going to be able to lift as heavy safely, which is only going to increase your chances of injury and then decrease the possible results you're getting. So just always be very, very mindful of staying within your range of motion, your active range of motion, not just thinking, well, how far low I can get, or coming to the top and just locking out your joints every time. Make sure you feel the right muscle doing the work, and then working that full body so you can actually move the weight safely. Another one would be your stiff legs or your RDLs. Now, this is a common one where people just think how far low I can go and not how much they can hinge back. When you're doing a stiff leg, when you're doing a deadlift, you want to think in your hips, hinging back. It doesn't matter how low you can get, because I've seen it where they're not so focused on that hinge back, so they're taking more of the hamstrings out, but just how far low they can go. That means they're going to arch the back. So now you're putting more tension on your lower back. We don't want tension on your lower back. So you always want to think core and posture, staying upright. Again, just like with the squats, engaging some of those posterior muscles to make sure you're keeping your back safe, and then hinge your hips back as far as they can. Once your hips go back and they can't move anymore, that's the end of your range. Don't think, well, I can bend over more. Yeah, but you're not bending over with your hips. You're bending over with your lumbar. We don't want that tension. Now, if you're trying to work your lower back directly, great, then that's a great movement for it. But if you're trying to work your hamstrings and you're putting on more weight, then you could be putting too much stress on your lower back, which is, again, over time can cause injuries. The other one is just the conventional deadlift. Very popular movement I see a lot of women doing now, but I've seen it and I've heard people talk about it and they think it is a lower back exercise. It is not a lower back exercise. The deadlift, conventional deadlifts, you're pretty much can work your entire body depending on the type you're doing. You need flat feet, you need your hamstrings involved, you need your glutes involved, your core, your lats, your back, and you want to stabilize this weight as you're moving. But if you are feeling your lower back, that might tell you that you have to adjust the weight or adjust your form, or make sure, again, you are engaging that core and those back muscles to make sure you're not putting that unnecessary tension on your back. And what I've seen a lot of people do, they'll try and just use the weightlifting belts thinking, okay, well, you know what? Let's talk about these weightlifting belts. Weightlifting belts are a very important tool. They're a very useful tool, but you have to know how to use them. I think I've seen people put them on and they think just by wearing the belt is going to magically protect their back. And that's not how a weightlifting belt works. I've seen people put them on and they'll wrap it up really tight because they think they got to give their back as much support as possible. You're actually doing more harm than you making it useful. We talked before about people don't know how to brace. A lot of people think they got to suck in. What you want to think about is expanding your torso, expanding your stomach, and then bracing to give you as much support as possible. If you had someone trying to come at you, would you want a 2-foot barrier or would you want a 20-foot barrier? That bigger barrier is going to provide you more protection. So when you're putting on these weight belts and you're making them as tight as you can no longer open up that torso. You can't open up and expand your core to brace properly to protect your back. So I always say, if using a weightlifting belt makes you happy, do what makes you happy, but make sure you're using it right. And understand it's not some magical tool that you just put on and now you can just lift heavier weights. I've literally this week, I've seen people wear a waist, I was about to say waist trainer. I've seen people wear a weight belt, a weight training belt, and they're doing like lateral raises and they're doing bicep curls. They're doing a lat pull down. This says there is a back problem, but they're still swinging when I'm seeing doing this movement. So they're not thinking of, okay, what's causing the back issue? They're thinking of, well, what new gimmick, what new toy can I use to try and mask the problem? The problem is you're not using your core. You're not thinking of stability. The problem is you're just thinking movement from point A to B. If I had to give my best advice when it comes to just some of these basic movements and how not to injure yourself, honestly, it's a tough question. Years ago, I remember putting out this video and I was like, hey, if you're in the gym, especially if you're a kid, you should just get a trainer. Get a trainer. Parents, you should not be letting your child go to the gym without a trainer for their protection. But I can't say that today. I've seen it too often where you have ego lifting trainers where they just want you to lift as heavy as you can because they have to try and make you think you're getting stronger, even though you're not thinking of your core. You're not thinking of your posture. You're not thinking full range movement. They just need you to perceive strength. They're not teaching you about proper posture. And every trainer is different. That's just my personal philosophy. Those are foundational points. But it's hard when I've seen personal trainers count your reps, but they're not even looking at you. They've left you for like 7 minutes at a time during your session. So if you can find a personal trainer that's, shows they care by paying you attention, by taking the time and actually teaching you proper form, which hopefully should help with your biomechanics inside and outside of the gym, then that's a trainer you should keep and make sure they understand they are important to you and they are dear and special. But outside of that, if you're asking me my advice, it doesn't matter what weight you lift. I would always say, keep your foundations on understanding your core, understanding what that is. Teach it how to be more stable. Learn what proper posture is, what muscles are involved in proper posture, and make sure no matter what movement you're doing, no matter how heavy you're lifting, if you know you can feel your core braced and you can keep that proper posture, making sure certain muscles are activated, that's going to do a lot just to help prevent any injuries. And then you can also look at some of the YouTube videos on my page to help you with your form. Just saying. Some of the other common reasons for injuries, we kind of talked about it before. It was just muscle tightness or weaknesses that can cause injuries. So when it comes to a lot of shoulder injuries, your rotator cuffs help stabilize your shoulder joint. So what happens a lot of times is because of that posture we talked about, where if you're hunched over or if you're always pulled over, you can activate those rotator cuffs. So your shoulder has to do so much more of the work. And this is, again, outside of the gym. Inside of the gym is even worse because if you're doing, let's say, a chest press and you don't know how to keep your shoulders down and lock your shoulder blades back, and every time you press, that shoulder comes forward, you're putting that shoulder more mechanically in a place to do the work, and then you're not allowing those rotator cuffs to help protect it. Over time, that can lead to injuries. If you're looking at the knee, most of the time with most of these things with injuries, you don't always want to look at where you're feeling the pain, but sometimes it's the joints and muscles around the pain. So with the knee, the two first places I would look at is I'll look at your glute strength, especially if you're thinking of your gluteus minimus and your gluteus medius. Again, if you're thinking of whenever you see people doing those banded workouts, those are the muscles you'll be working. I would want to see how strong those muscles are. And then I'll also want to see your ankle mobility. If you have tight ankles or weak glutes, that can cause knee pains as well. Another one, when you're thinking of your lower back, you're looking at how strong is your core, and don't think crunches, because crunches are working for your abs. Whenever you're thinking of working your core, the main thing to think about is stability movement. A plank. If you held a plank and then try to lift one arm up, you feel a lot less stable, and your body has to kind of hold you down. Those type of things, anything that's dealing with you keeping that body still while you're going through movements, that's going to be how you really work your core. But if your core is weak, that can force your lower back to do more work. If your glutes are weak, that can force your lower back to do more work. And then again, just always thinking of that posture. If you have a anterior or posterior pelvic tilt, which means your waist, your hips kind of leans far forward, or you notice that it leans back, you might not feel it, but you're actually putting tension in your back. And then when you go through your everyday movements, you're putting more unnecessary tension in your back. And then when you now go into the gym where you're lifting heavier things, that's even more unnecessary tension you're putting in your back. So just making sure that goes back to understanding what's proper posture, what's proper core, and then having those movements outside of the gym, and then really making sure you understand those movements inside of the gym. Now, at the end of this video, we're going to go over to Beast, and we're going to go through some exercises and some tests you can do just to kind of see if you might have certain weakness or instability in certain muscles. These are things that you can try. But again, as I said at the top, please go see a specialist. Please go see a physio. Please see a corrective exercise specialist. Talk to a trainer that can specialize in these things, that can help you. Think of these as just like a starting guide, just so you can see, okay, yeah, I noticed these muscles are weaker, and this could be a reason why you're getting injuries. So my best advice: fix the problem before it starts. I'm a big believer in prevention. So understand, when you're going into the gym, if you go into it wanting to learn proper posture, wanting to learn how to brace your core, understanding you want to work on those muscle stabilizers to make sure you don't get those injuries. That way you're able to lift longer and better. And who doesn't want to do that? And lastly, do the work. I've seen it where I've had clients come from physios, and then I would make my own mobility drills for all my clients. And they will have the drill, we'll go through it, they would have pain, and we'll work together, we'll make sure it's good, we'll form their mobility drill, and they're like, yeah, it's less pain. But then sometimes they'll stop doing the drill. If you know what we're doing works, keep doing it. Yes, it's a pain that you got to take 5 minutes out of your day to go through this mobility drill, but I think you're worth those 5 minutes versus you now having knee or shoulder or back pain just because you didn't go through it. So, as always, you can find this video on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from, Apple or Spotify, and we'll see you on the next video. Until then, be happy, be healthy.
So 2 possible causes for knee pain could be coming from your abductors, your glutes, or your ankles. So we're going to go through ankle tests just to see how tight your ankles are. And then if you notice your ankles are tight, we'll go through a drill that you can go through to try and help loosen it up. And then I want you to come back, do this same test again to see if it made any improvement. Now, I would recommend doing this barefoot, but you would just want to rather make a fist, connect the wall to your toe. Keep that foot flat. Your foot's going to try and come up to give you the illusion of movement. Now I want you to try and take your knee and try and go straight, touch the wall. If you notice as you're moving, it gets tight and it doesn't really move too much, you can barely get it over your toe, then it's saying your ankles might be tight, and that could be a reason why you're having knee pain. So if you notice your ankles are tight, I would just find a bench or just a higher platform. Keep that foot flat, knee going over your pinky toe, and you are trying to think butt to ankle, pushing it as far forward as you can, with hopefully the goal over time, you've been able to sit right down, knee over toe, and then you can even pull down and really feel that stretch right down the bottom of your ankles. I would usually have a client hold this 2 sets, 10 count. Now, if you notice you are really tight and you're not feeling any stretch, I would recommend just getting an incline bench, putting your foot already in some dorsiflexion, and then trying that same movement. You should be able to feel that a little better. Now, if you're using these to help grow your glutes, you're absolutely wasting your time. But I always recommend you do use them to help strengthen your hip abductors, your gluteus medius, your gluteus minimus. Those are a lot to do with stabilizing and protecting the knee. So what you could do, take this knee and just drive it into the ground. And then with this knee, keeping your feet together, you just want to try and spread that band as much as possible, feeling that glute, the side of your butt, having to stabilize that band and resist it as it comes down. And then push through it again. Slight pause, feeling that contraction, really trying to spread it. And then resist that pull from it coming in. And then pushing out. So for this next one, you might need a friend. We talked before about sometimes your shoulder pain can come from your rotator cuffs because those aren't strong enough to stabilize the shoulder joint. So with this particular test, what you could do, I want you to stand tall, keep your elbows tucked to the side, hands out. And what I want your friend to do is slowly push your hands inward as you try and resist pushing out against that force. And if you notice one side seems to be really weak and it cannot stabilize, it cannot stop your friend from gently pushing you in, or if it creates some shoulder pain, then you know it might be coming from the rotator cuffs. You need to learn how to activate it. You need to strengthen it. So if that's the case, what I would recommend doing are some external rotations to strengthen that rotator cuff. So one, you can lay on your side, keep that elbow tucked in. Some people will put a towel on, or I'll just tell you, take your elbow and try and shove it on your rib cage and keep that connection. You do not want your elbow moving back. You want to try and rotate in as you rotate the weight out, and you want to make sure you feel it in that rotator cuff area. Slowly rotate it in, and then slowly try and rotate it out. And pay attention to the weight I'm using. I see people try and do this like it's a bicep movement and they're trying to use 20, 30 pounds. You're just going to end up activating other muscles to stabilize instead of using that rotator cuff muscle. So make sure it's start out light, start out with just your hands if you have to, and just make sure you feel the right muscle doing the work. And also make sure you're keeping that proper posture. As we said earlier in the video, better your posture, better you're able to use those muscles.
Oh, hey, you guys are still here. Thanks for staying to the end of the video. Please watch some of the other videos on the page and subscribe.